On the morning of July 2, 1937, the world watched in awe as Amelia Earhart, the most famous female pilot in history, soared into the sky for the final leg of her flight around the world. Confident, fearless, and determined, she had already conquered the impossible. But what happened next became one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. Her last radio transmission crackled through the static. "We are on the line 157-337. We will repeat this message. We are running low on fuel." Then, silence. Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished without a trace somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. No wreckage, no bodies, no definitive answers. Just endless waves, and questions that have haunted history for nearly a century. Over the decades, countless theories have emerged. Some believe her plane simply ran out of fuel and sank beneath the ocean. Others are convinced she crash-landed on a deserted island and survived for days, maybe weeks, before meeting a tragic end. But darker theories suggest something far more sinister, that Amelia may have been captured by the Japanese military, or that her disappearance was part of a secret government mission gone wrong. To this day, every new discovery, a fragment of metal, a faded photograph, a bone fragment, reignites the mystery. Who was Amelia Earhart in her final moments? What did she see, and what really happened in those final, desperate hours? Her legacy lives on, not just as a pioneer of flight, but as the woman who disappeared into history, leaving behind a riddle the world may never solve. Long before she vanished into legend, Amelia Earhart was already rewriting history. Born in 1897 in Atchison, Kansas, she was raised in a world that told women to stay grounded, literally. But Amelia had her eyes fixed on the clouds from the moment she saw her first airplane at a state fair. She once said, "I did not understand it at the time, but I believe that little red airplane said something to me as it swished by." From that moment, her destiny was written in the sky. Amelia didn't just want to fly, she wanted to prove that a woman could do anything a man could, and perhaps even better. She worked as a nurse's aide during World War I, later took flying lessons from the legendary pilot Nita Snook, and used every penny she earned to fund her training. By 1922, she set her first record, flying higher than any woman before her, reaching an altitude of 14,000 feet. But her rise to fame truly began in 1928, when she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, as a passenger. Even then, her humility was clear. "I was just baggage, like a sack of potatoes," she said with a laugh. But inside, she was already determined to make the journey again, this time as the pilot. In 1932, Amelia did exactly that. Alone, in a single-engine Lockheed Vega, she crossed the freezing Atlantic, battling exhaustion, lightning, and mechanical failure. When she landed in Northern Ireland after nearly 15 hours in the air, the world erupted. She was no longer just a pilot. She was a global symbol of courage, independence, and female empowerment. Hollywood courted her, presidents honored her, and the public adored her. But fame never changed Amelia. She preferred simple clothes, practical shoes, and quiet evenings over glamorous parties. She married publisher George P. Putnam, but on her wedding day, she handed him a letter saying she didn't believe in the idea of possessing people. She vowed to live life on her own terms, and meant it. Still, as her fame grew, so did her ambition. She had flown solo across the Atlantic, across the U.S., and even from Hawaii to California, all records. But one challenge remained, to fly around the world. In 1937, she began to prepare for her most daring adventure yet, a 29,000-mile journey that would take her around the equator, through every climate, every danger, and every unknown. She chose Fred Noonan, a skilled navigator, to join her. Together, they would attempt something no one had ever done before. The world cheered her bravery. The newspapers called her the Queen of the Air. But those closest to her worried. The route she had chosen, through vast stretches of open ocean, was treacherous, with little room for error. Even small navigation mistakes could prove fatal. Still, Amelia brushed off the doubts. "Adventure is worthwhile in itself," she told reporters before takeoff. She had no idea those words would soon become her epitaph. By May of 1937, Amelia Earhart was ready to take on the most ambitious journey of her career, and of aviation history itself. A flight around the world, following the equator. Her aircraft, the Lockheed Electra 10E, was a sleek twin-engine marvel of the era, custom-built for endurance and speed. Amelia affectionately called it her flying laboratory. Her first attempt earlier that year ended in disaster when a mechanical failure caused her plane to skid off a runway in Hawaii. The Electra was badly damaged, and the journey had to be postponed. Yet, true to her unshakable spirit, Amelia refused to see it as failure. "Courage," she once said, "is the price that life exacts for granting peace." After repairs and months of preparation, she was ready again. This time, she decided to fly eastward instead of westward, a choice that meant longer distances over land and fewer over vast oceans. On June 1, 1937, Amelia and her navigator, Fred Noonan, departed from Miami, Florida, with the world watching in awe. They made steady progress. Their route took them across South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia, completing over 22,000 miles of the planned 29,000. Every stop brought crowds, reporters, and admirers. Amelia sent cheerful letters and photographs home, writing about the beauty she saw from the sky. Deserts glowing gold, islands scattered like jewels, and cities sparkling under dawn's light. But beneath the optimism, the trip was taking its toll. Both she and Noonan were exhausted. Navigation equipment malfunctioned at times, and weather conditions grew increasingly unpredictable. Even so, Amelia's determination never wavered. "One more flight," she told a friend, "and we'll be home." That one more flight would become one of the greatest mysteries in human history. Their final planned refueling stop before returning to the U.S. was a tiny speck in the Pacific Ocean, Howland Island, an uninhabited coral atoll barely 2 miles long. It was so small that, from the air, it looked like a grain of sand in a vast blue desert. On the morning of July 2, 1937, Amelia and Noonan took off from Lae, New Guinea, for the 2,500-mile flight to Howland Island. Radio communication was spotty at best. The U.S. Coast Guard ship Itasca waited near the island to guide her in. Hours passed. The Itasca crew picked up faint transmissions. Amelia's voice was calm, but increasingly strained. "We must be on you," she said. "But we cannot see you. Fuel is running low." Moments later, another message crackled through the static. "We are on line, 157-337. We are running north and south." And then, silence. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan were never heard from again. The U.S. government launched the most expensive and extensive air and sea search in history at that time. Dozens of ships and planes scoured the Pacific, covering hundreds of thousands of square miles. But there was no trace, no wreckage, no distress signal, no evidence of where they went down. Theories began swirling immediately. Some believed they had simply run out of fuel and crashed into the ocean, their plane sinking to the depths. Others speculated they might have landed on a remote island and perished waiting for rescue. A darker theory even emerged during World War II, that Amelia had been captured by the Japanese while flying near the Marshall Islands, accused of espionage, and executed. No solid proof ever surfaced, but the rumors persisted for decades. Amelia's husband, George Putnam, never stopped hoping. He financed private searches and followed every lead, no matter how slim. But as years turned into decades, hope faded. Still, what remained was her spirit. That rare combination of courage, curiosity, and conviction that made her one of history's most beloved figures. Even in disappearance, she became eternal, a symbol of human daring and the mysterious pull of the unknown. To this day, Amelia Earhart's last flight remains one of aviation's most haunting enigmas. For nearly a century, the disappearance of Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan has stood as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. What truly happened on that fateful day in July 1937? Over the years, historians, researchers, and conspiracy theorists alike have proposed dozens of explanations, some grounded in evidence, others steeped in speculation. The official explanation, supported by the U.S. government at the time, was simple yet tragic. Earhart's Lockheed Electra ran out of fuel somewhere near Howland Island, crashing into the vast Pacific Ocean. With no wreckage ever found, it seemed the most logical conclusion. After all, the Pacific covers more than 60 million square miles. A single plane, lost in its depths, could vanish without a trace. But for many, that explanation felt incomplete. How could such an experienced pilot, flying one of the most advanced aircraft of her era, simply disappear without any sign? That question launched a wave of alternative theories, each trying to make sense of the silence that followed her final transmission. One of the most compelling possibilities is that Earhart and Noonan landed, not crashed, on Gardner Island, now known as Nikumaroro, part of the Republic of Kiribati. In 1940, a British officer named Gerald Gallagher discovered skeletal remains, a woman's shoe, and fragments of a sextant box on the island. These items were sent for analysis, but the bones were later misplaced. Modern researchers from the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, TIGAR, revisited the site decades later. They found remnants of a campfire, aircraft parts, and 1930s-era items such as compact mirrors and buttons. Forensic reanalysis of the bone measurements suggested the remains could belong to a tall, European female, consistent with Earhart's profile. Could Amelia have survived the landing, living out her final days on a deserted island, waiting for help that never came? For many historians, the evidence, though circumstantial, is hauntingly persuasive. Another popular theory is far darker. Some claim Amelia's flight path accidentally took her into Japanese-controlled territory, such as the Marshall Islands, where she and Noonan were captured by Japanese forces. During the tense pre-World War II climate, they were allegedly accused of spying for the U.S. Stories surfaced over the years of islanders who claimed to have seen a white woman pilot imprisoned on Saipan. Some even allege that Earhart died in captivity. Declassified U.S. military documents mention operations in the region, but none definitively confirm the capture story. In 2017, a photograph discovered in the U.S. National Archives appeared to show a woman resembling Earhart and a man similar to Noonan standing on a dock in the Marshalls. However, experts later dated the image to before 1937, discrediting the theory, at least in that instance. Still, whispers of a government cover-up persist, especially among conspiracy theorists who believe the U.S. knew more than it admitted at the time. A related but more elaborate version suggests that Earhart was actually on a secret mission for the U.S. government. According to this idea, her around-the-world flight was a cover for reconnaissance over Japanese territories. After being caught, she was said to have been returned to the U.S. under a new identity, living quietly for decades under another name. While there's no solid evidence to support this theory, its persistence shows how deeply Amelia's legend captured the world's imagination. In recent years, advances in deep-sea exploration have reignited hope of finding the truth. Ocean explorer Robert Ballard, who famously discovered the Titanic, launched a 2019 expedition to search the ocean floor near Howland Island using state-of-the-art sonar and underwater drones. Despite covering an enormous area, they found no trace of the Electra. However, in 2023, new sonar data from a private expedition suggested the presence of metallic debris roughly 16,000 feet deep in the same region. While unconfirmed, experts believe it could potentially match the size and shape of Earhart's aircraft. Investigations are ongoing, and many are hopeful this discovery could finally close the case. Whether lost to the waves or marooned on a distant shore, one fact remains: Amelia Earhart's courage changed history. She broke barriers not just in aviation, but in how the world viewed women's potential. She once wrote, "Even in death or disappearance, her story continues to inspire explorers, dreamers, and those unafraid of the unknown." The unanswered questions surrounding her fate only deepen her legend. transforming Amelia from a pilot into a timeless symbol of human curiosity and courage. More than 8 decades after her disappearance, Amelia Earhart remains one of the most enduring and fascinating figures in modern history. Her story is not simply about aviation, it's about human ambition, courage, and the relentless pursuit of freedom. What she achieved in her short life continues to ripple across generations, inspiring everyone who dares to dream beyond limitations. Amelia's legacy begins with her fearlessness. At a time when women were expected to be homemakers and rarely allowed to dream of adventure, she defied every convention. She didn't just fly airplanes, she flew through the barriers of gender, expectation, and fear. Every takeoff she made was a statement that women were not just passengers in life's journey, but pilots of their own destiny. In the years after her disappearance, her name became synonymous with bravery and independence. Schools, airports, scholarships, and even spacecraft have been named in her honor. The Amelia Earhart Fellowship, established by Zonta International, continues to support women pursuing careers in aerospace engineering and science, a mission she would have cherished deeply. But beyond her records and titles, it's the spirit of who she was that endures most vividly. Those who knew Amelia described her as kind, humble, and curious. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing understanding of the skies, the machines, and the possibilities of human courage. She believed deeply that progress came only through risk, and that exploration, no matter the cost, was the essence of living. Her husband, George P. Putnam, never stopped searching for her. For years after 1937, he organized expeditions, combing the Pacific for any trace of the woman he loved. Though he eventually accepted that she was gone, he continued to protect her legacy, publishing her writings and ensuring her story would never fade from memory. His devotion added another layer to her legend, a reminder that love too can be eternal, even when it ends in mystery. Over time, Amelia's story grew from a tragedy into a symbol of human resilience. Artists painted her, authors wrote about her, and filmmakers immortalized her on screen. Her image, leather jacket, wind-tossed hair, eyes gazing toward the horizon, became a global icon of freedom. She was no longer just a pilot. She was a metaphor for daring to go where no one else would. Her influence extended beyond aviation. The feminist movement of the 1960s and 1970s often invoked Amelia's name as proof that women could, and should, claim equality in every field. Modern astronauts, including Eileen Collins, the first female space shuttle commander, have cited her as an early inspiration. Even today, when a young girl looks up at the sky and imagines herself at the controls of a plane, she's following in Amelia's flight path, and yet, despite the admiration, the mystery of her disappearance continues to haunt the world. It's as though the sky itself chose to keep her secret, allowing her to live forever as both hero and enigma. Each new expedition, each newly unearthed clue, keeps her story alive, an unfinished chapter in the book of human exploration. Perhaps that's how Amelia would have wanted it. She was not afraid of uncertainty. She embraced it. To her, life's unanswered questions were part of its beauty. She once wrote, "Never interrupt someone doing something you said couldn't be done." Those words perfectly capture her essence, a quiet defiance wrapped in grace. Amelia Earhart's life was short, but its impact is infinite. She showed the world that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to rise above it. Today, statues of her stand in museums and airports. Her name adorns awards, and her face appears in textbooks. But her true memorial is in the hearts of those who refuse to accept limits. Her final flight may have ended in silence, but her voice, strong, fearless, and full of wonder, still echoes in every dreamer who dares to take off into the unknown. Amelia Earhart may have vanished into the Pacific, but she never truly disappeared. Her legacy soars higher than any altitude she ever reached, forever reminding us that some souls are simply too boundless to be lost.